Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to press record. I should have recorded that because that might have been helpful. Okay, but yeah, did that kind of clear up? That was a question that somebody had. So yeah, ignore the last 4 years in the R bind when you're putting those two data sets together and go right down to where you're summarizing the data, preparing it for mapping. And then I think Katie, you asked yesterday if for the facets, you're right, it's not 4 boxes, it's 3 now. So 3 and call is 3. And so I think it's like, you know, if you hit errors, like usually the like ggplot, the errors are like not that hard to figure out. Sometimes they're in a different language, but about half the time it's like, oh, like something, it's you know, it's in the facet wrap, or you know, it's in like the axis that you're trying, and then you try to figure out what might be going wrong. But if you hit roadblocks, you can always ask, you know, people. Yeah, and I just want to make sure I'm covering all the other feedback. The fact that there's still like exclamation points in the feedback of like it's going okay, I'm like I was afraid this would feel like drudgery by the end, and maybe it does a little bit. I think we're all looking forward to having some quiet time, but yeah, I think I covered all of the feedback. Does anybody have anything else that I'm missing? No. Okay. And then again, this afternoon, we're hoping to meet with each of you for about 15 minutes, or it can go longer if it needs to. And so if you have other feedback or something comes up that you forgot to mention this morning, let us know at that point. Okay. Diana, do you want to give your presentation?
Yeah, I can pull up my PowerPoint. I guess I'll stop sharing my face as well. Hold on just a second. And just a disclaimer, I put this together really quickly. So it's not going to be the most well-crafted PowerPoint, but I wanted to give a few more visuals to talk about. So, oops, that's not what I meant to click on. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't given this form of presentation before, just because when I talked about it with park folks, there wasn't really any need to give any background, just because we were talking about papers that either they had written or were very familiar with. And so if I really miss anything with the background, because the background wasn't really the focus of this project, Kate and Camilla, feel free to correct me at any point or at the end, because I definitely don't have all of the details. So basically, this project is part of a greater effort to find out the floral diversity of the watershed. So Cromwell Brook watershed, I just wanted to give an overview of where it is. If you're not familiar with it, I definitely wasn't. It's this outline in red, and it includes a bit of Bar Harbor as well. Here's a topo map of where it's located. I don't know why Kiva Brook was included here, but the blue outline is really where Cromwell Brook watershed is. And so this watershed has gone through a lot of change in the past century and a half or so, and even more so, partially because of the fire. So we talked about the fire. It falls within the extent of it. And so the floral diversity is very, very different on the part of the island that the fire affected. As well as, for example, beaver on the landscape have changed the dynamics of groundwater, or not groundwater, the dynamics of Great Meadow, which is part of the watershed, and as well as introducing a lot of invasives from Bar Harbor. This is one of the most invaded watersheds on the island. And so a big part, this is a part of the Wild Acadia project, which I actually don't know what the extent of this project is, but I do know that Cromwell Brook watershed is one of the first sort of like test subjects of this project, and there's a sister report that focuses on looking at the history of fauna in the watershed, and so I came in after that and started looking at plants. So basically what I did for this project is I tried to research flora in the watershed, starting from whenever it started, because they wanted to find out how it has changed in the past century and a half or so, and how we might kind of move forward in restoring the watershed to a more natural state, is the way that I've understood it. Especially just because, and I'll show you, I don't know if I have a more detailed picture, but you can see this road. I don't know if you can see my mouse. If I click Control, does that work to highlight it?
We can see your mouse.
Okay, great. The Park Loop Road runs through it, and so this kind of part right here, this is Great Meadow, and because the Park Loop Road runs through, it creates a barrier for all that water, and it has changed the water dynamics a lot. And so looking back in history, we just want to find out how it's changed. Oh, it's really blurry. Oh no. But in any case, I wanted to show some pictures just in case you haven't been there. This is Great Meadow, which is one of the locations within the watershed, one of the main ones. Here's another picture of Great Meadow. I don't know exactly where this is, the direction that this is looking, but it's dominated by a lot of red maple, aspen, and quite a bit of invasive species. There's been a lot of invasive management in the last couple of decades, especially in Great Meadow. And then this is the Tarn, which is south of Great Meadow. Used to be a wetland, now is not a wetland. So in terms of data collection, I started with articles that are in IRMA, which is a database for the Park Service. As far as I can understand, it holds a lot of the data that the Park Service has, and just read all of these articles looking for species accounts, and then recording them into a separate spreadsheet, which you can see here on this side. I was only able to get through the high relevance articles for this project, just because there are a ton of articles that have keywords for Cromwell Brook watershed. And so after finishing that, I moved into a few other sources. Oh, it says I have bad network quality, so I apologize if I'm lagging. So I moved into other sources. iNaturalist, I looked into. There's a lot of herbarium data out there that's really important. And I'll talk about some of these other sources that I found important later on as well, but just a quick summary. And then Northeast Shepherd Network, of course, has a lot of great data that contributed to this project. This is just my report organization, which isn't necessarily important, but these are the sources that I decided to focus on at the very end when I was writing this up. There are, of course, tons of other sources that I got a few species from, but these are the main priority sources that had a lot of, the quantity of data was greater than other sources. And the ones that I have highlighted are the ones that I wanted to talk about in more detail to park managers, but I think it's also important to talk about the other sources. For example, the Exotic Plant Management Program. I will just summarize really quickly. Basically, exotic plant management began in the watershed in the mid-'80s. Surprisingly, they didn't manage, well, maybe not surprisingly, but depending on how you're looking at it, they only managed purple loosestrife up until maybe the early 2000s, like 2003. And so basically there's all these annual reports of how purple loosestrife was managed in the park. And then I'm assuming after there was a greater survey done in the early 2000s to figure out where the invasives were, and how many there were, which invasives are out there, because at that point they were just focusing on purple loosestrife. Then they started focusing on other invasives, like glossy buckthorn, for example, is a huge problem in Great Meadow. And I don't have a slide for this because this is obviously not, I didn't need to talk about this before, but it is important to note just the extent of the problem and that it's been managed for a couple of decades now. And as Kate would tell you, it does show just how important it is, because Acadia is one of the only parks that has a successful exotic plant management program that has shown a great difference in the quantity of invasives at the park. I think the most kind of important source historically is Flora of Mount Desert Island, Maine. It is the first known comprehensive survey of vascular and non-vascular plants on MDI. They definitely didn't focus as much on non-vascular plants as vascular, but it is, you know, the first survey out there that tries to report on every species that they are able to find at this time. So they began work in 1880, or specifically the Champlain Society began work in 1880 collecting plant data. And then the authors of this book, or catalog as they call it, they took over in 1888 and they finally published it in 1894. And if you haven't read it, which I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, I didn't know about it. I think it was honestly a bit of a pleasure to read. Here's some excerpts that I pulled out that I found really entertaining. And I think if scientific reports were written more like this now, they'd probably be read more. But so they said, furthermore, the matter of nomenclature was much complicated by the insufferable tendency of summer visitors to give new names, often showing the worst possible taste, to any natural feature that might happen to attract their attention. Such names deserve preservation only in rare cases and should not be tolerated for a moment, unless by lapse of time or by custom the new name has fairly superseded the old for all practical purposes. So here they're talking about the fact that they had to create new maps just to keep the location names more consistent. And I just found it funny that people have been salty about summer visitors since the late 1880s or so. Seems like a constant sort of theme on MDI. And then they also were talking about plant nomenclature later on and said, we sincerely hope that botanists in other countries will not be deceived into thinking that this school of nomenclature includes the American botanist, for it includes only a part, even if it is the part that makes most of the noise. And so, I don't know, I would recommend it. It's free online for anybody to read. I think it's great, especially the introduction. So this was a really important source because, as I said, it's the first one. So it provides a baseline for the rest of, for basically any botanical survey after that. There's a lot of papers that reference it later on and add things to it since it wasn't complete. I mean, I don't think it's possible to survey all of the plants on MDI in that amount of time. So I just thought it was cool and it's good to mention. These are the maps that they published, and mostly showing them just because location names changed so much. So that was a barrier to finding out where things were and noting location names. So for example, it might be kind of hard to see, but in 1893 for the original map that they published, this is Great Meadow that I'm circling with my mouse. They have it noted as Roberts Meadow. Later on, it changed to Big Meadow, as you can see in this 1901 map. So that's just one example of the many names that have been changed in the past, and so it was important to keep track of all these name changes so that even if you don't see modern names in historic sources, they're still valuable. I mean, obviously that seems like an obvious statement, but I didn't know about all these name changes when I started. So finding out through these maps that they published that I needed to include the historical names was key. This is one of the additions. I won't go over it in too much detail, but like I said earlier, there was a lot of papers, subsequent papers that referenced the original Rand and Redfield 1894 paper that added collections to it. iNaturalist was one of the more recent sources that I found very helpful, just because it's not focused on like plot information. It's, you know, people can go out and observe any sort of plants that they see, and they show up in iNaturalist, and then we're able to pull them out with this Cromwell Brook watershed polygon because it's been located as a place on iNaturalist, which is really helpful. You can, so if you have collected data in the watershed, it does end up being used by me. in a big spreadsheet that hopefully people will read. But you can see that all the observations are kind of clustered around trails, which limits the data a little bit, but it's still an important comparison to some of the more professional data that I included. This is actually the only citizen science source that I was able to include in the data. This is a little screenshot of my final not database, but data set. And so for my naturalist, it was interesting to note a little bit of background on the organization of this. I just sorted all of the observations that I noted by unique values. And so looking back on all the unique values for our naturalist, you can see that balsam fir is not noted by any other source that I included, as well as the, oh gosh, I can't remember their common name now.
Sundew?
Sundew. Yes, sundews, thank you. So the two sundew species were also not noted in any other source, which seems odd because, and again, I didn't cover all of the sources that are out there in the 2 months that I had to work on this. So it's very possible that they are in another source that I didn't reach, but considering that there's NETN data in here, there's quite a few other surveys that have very comprehensive plant lists. It's just surprising that they didn't make it in. So those should be looked into further.
Yeah, do you want a quick explanation for why Drosera may not be there?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's possible it's in that watershed just in like very low abundance, but sundews, they're insectivorous because they generally live in low nitrogen environments, and that's how they get extra nitrogen. As soon as there's nutrient enrichment in a system, you lose Drosera usually. It's just not like they can't handle high nitrogen habitats because of just what they're adapted to. So Drosera is, whenever you're in an impacted system, you lose them pretty quickly.
That makes perfect sense. So I do wonder where these were found and who found them. Because for the most part, I think we can trust our naturalists because it's at least 3 people have to agree on identification, but that's still not 100%. So.
Yeah, sorry, I just say one more thing.
Yeah.
Again, it could be there, small pockets where they still occur, and sometimes they see them on top of hummocks. I don't know if you remember that from the summer. Sometimes they'll be on top of hummocks. But it's also possible that Wild Gardens of Acadia has like their little bog area, and they do have Drosera in there.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in Wild Gardens that's nowhere else.
It's like a little botanic garden with just like wild plants of Acadia, but it's right there by the nature center.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's possible to check the coordinates on that as well. So it'd be possible to see if that's true, which is the advantage of iNaturalist is that every observation is tied to coordinates and can be mapped, which isn't the case for the other sources that are in this project. Anyway, like I said earlier, there's a lot of herbarium data that's very useful. Had a lot of trouble finding it because a lot of it is, hidden in the vouchers that are. Let me backpedal a little bit. So for the database, the Consortium of Northeastern Herbaria Database basically is a map that you can look at, and it has a lot of herbarium data across the Northeast. So in theory, that you can map the data that you have, but some of the historical data is not mapped to where it was actually collected. It's mapped to more general locations, and so it's a little difficult to do that. I wasn't able to dig into this, but I thought it was worth mentioning that this exists. I think it's awesome. I hadn't heard about it. So another step for this project in the future will be digging into this data to see, to look at the vouchers and look at the more specific metadata that's in the, this is just an example of that. So like this is a map of all the observations that were observed by RAND. So when you search for RAND on MDI, this is what you get. And so looking through all of these observations, that were not collected from this one spot. They are obviously collected across MDI, but you have to click on them individually to see where they were collected. And sometimes, like I'm in this screenshot here, the data is not digitally recorded, so you have to actually look at the voucher label to see where it was recorded. So you can see here this was collected roadside by the gorge opposite the Beechcraft path. So that narrows it down to being within the watershed. But that's the end of my official PowerPoint. Let me see if there's anything else I can mention. Like I said, this wasn't really planned to be a more general overview, so I hope it was interesting in some way. I think to sort of summarize, it was difficult to find historical data because of how it's recorded, which isn't surprising. And I think that there's a lot of physical data that could be left in the archives at the park that I wasn't able to access. It seems like in the past couple of decades, starting in the 90s, there has been a greater effort to more comprehensively survey flora on the island, starting with Craig Green's work, Dr. Craig Green's work in 1990. He surveyed rare vascular plants. But again, it's just hard to find specific data for the watershed. Like there have been park-wide surveys, but for the watershed specifically, it's been harder to find that. So I ended up with a database or a data set. I actually don't know if this is the one because I have a lot of copies. I don't think this is an earlier copy, but it basically looks like this. It's just lines of plant records. This is just beginning. I actually don't know which one of these it is, so you'll have to trust me, but I can send it to you. And yeah, do Kate and Camille have anything to add about the background? I know I didn't do a great job of summarizing sort of why this is happening, because I think I was thrown into it without knowing why it was happening at the very beginning, so I had to figure it out. I can stop sharing my screen and maybe,
Yeah, it's a great example of like sleuthing. Yeah, the Wild Acadia is an interesting project. It's very cool that Friends of Acadia is, providing funding and spearheading, recovery of particular watersheds, starting with Cromwell Brook. But I guess, what is it? Bass Harbor is next? Which one?
Marshall
Brook.
Which includes some of Bass. Well, yeah, Bass
I
Harbor
mean,
is part of the Marshall Brook watershed.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the plans for like that particular, like the historic plant data set are, but it's cool information to have for sure. I don't know. Yeah, that it's just, there's been so much modification happening in that Great Meadow. It's not like you could, like, even if you knew exactly what it looked like, I don't think I would be able to put it back exactly how it was. But,
yeah. I just have thought and I forgot it. But yeah, it was hard to sort of figure out what the main final product, I guess, would be, because there was very little communication between me and Brian and Abe throughout this. In any case, so yeah, it was cool to find out more of the history.
Yeah, you did a really nice job with it. And I'm not so, well, I can see this being something that Abe wants to do because it's kind of his thing, like he, for his PhD, he basically redid the flora that Thoreau did in Massachusetts and found like a lot of phenological changes. Really, really interesting stuff. Like, yeah, if you want to look up some of the phenology work that Abe did with Thoreau's, like he just like he's first of all he's an expert on Henry David Thoreau because he basically spent like 5 years following Thoreau's tracks around Massachusetts, and then he found a lot of really interesting phenological changes. Also documented. It was like one of the first research kind of projects to document that invasives phenology is different than natives, and so they tend to come out earlier and stay out later, and so they have an advantage of having longer photosynthetic period. But yeah, he's very much like, so we had Caitlin McDonough McKenzie come out to Acadia and look at how the flora has changed between Wren and Redfield and now. And so I can see this being like a more focused application of that idea in a watershed to see if we can if it can help us figure out what it used to be to help inform what we think it should be. And yeah, so I think it's really important work that you did. It's probably hard to see exactly what the application will be now, but I'm sure there will be. And it's just one of those things. And I think Abe is really good at kind of having that perspective of like, I don't have a direct application of that now, but I know that it will come in handy in the future. And then, like a year from now, someone's going to have a question about Cromwell Brook or Great Meadow, and they'll be like, oh, well, let's see what Diana's data set says, because I think the answer is probably there. And that happens all the time. And so I often, like, I've gotten to know Abe over almost 10 years now, I guess. And like, he'll have an idea for a project in my head. I'm always like, okay, like I don't see where that's gonna go, but fine. And then like 6 months later, I'm like, man, that was so smart that you did that. I'm so glad you did that because it's been helpful. So that's my little take on the context of what you did and why. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's just a final point. I guess it's a lot harder to find this narrative of plants throughout history. Like with the fauna report, it's a lot easier to follow like beaver specifically and be like, this is how beaver have changed and this is how bats have changed. But I can't be like, this is how Drosera intermedia has changed through the years, because there just isn't that data. So like the way that I wrote it was more focused on reports than like finding a narrative, because from my perspective it was harder to do that. But yeah, so thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for that. Nice job. All right, and I guess I'm up for wetlands tomorrow, which I guess is a good transition because you just kind of talked about wetlands, and I'll talk a little bit more about wetlands in Acadia. It's a presentation I gave a couple years ago that I think it's still like, it doesn't really need to be updated. It's still pretty relevant, but hopefully it's interesting, and it does actually talk about Great Meadow. So okay, before we get started on QGIS or QGIS, I just had an email from Lori Richards, and she just wanted me to check in with you all to make sure that Paycor has been working, and it sounds like you should be getting paid today. Has anyone noticed if they got paid today? You did? Great. Oh, okay. Well, you should have gotten paid today. So check your bank account at some point, and if you don't see anything, let us know, and we'll try to figure out what the problem is. And you should be able to see your pay stubs too. She had like little directions on how to see pay stubs if you need to see it. And she did email all of you to your, let's see, is it your Scudic account? I'm just trying to look at the email. She sent it to your Scudic email. So she sent you the same email that she sent me that has directions on how to view your pay stub if you need it. And maybe for tax purposes at some point you'll need it. I'm not really sure. So, okay. All right, so QGIS. Actually, before I do that, I did just code out the NCBN version of doing the tree diameter distribution for, I think I picked Sagamore Hill for, so it just like, I know that's an NCBN park, so I could pick it. I always forget the others, sorry. And it's on the new HTML file, so I just uploaded it and it's there. So just so you can see like how it's slightly different. Okay, so now we're on the QGIS, and the I think it's pretty basic what I had you guys read and like the videos to watch. It was pretty basic stuff. but I have a sense based on feedback and based on your guys' experience that you probably have enough information to even start making maps right now. So I'm just gonna fumble my way through to make a map too, because it's, you know, probably by next week you guys are going to be faster and better with QGIS than Camilla and I are. If you hit stumbling blocks and need help, we will do what we can to help troubleshoot, but again, you're going to be learning how to use this program faster and better than we are because you're going to be using it more. Okay, anyway, so I'm going to start sharing my screen, and so I am going to map Saratoga, which is an NETN park, so that I'm not stealing anybody's park to make a map. All right. So I'm going to start out with a new project. Hold on, I'm going to delete a project that I started working on just so it's starting from scratch.
Kate, just preemptively, just pause.
Okay.
Every time you do something.
Thank you. Thank you. I forget that it's laggy. Okay. So I think hopefully everyone has created a new R project with their park code. So Sarah is my park code. And so these are the files that in the R training document that show you how to make the, you know, all of the same folders. And I ran through and I created my metric 1 and 4. So these are my metric 1 and 4 shapefiles. They're in my shapefile folder. And I also have the park boundary and the vegetation layer. So there are 4 shapefiles in my Sarah folder to get started. So going back to this higher directory, the Sarah project. So that's my R project right there that I made all the shapefiles with. And then I'm storing my QGIS projects in this QGIS projects so that for you, when you're like uploading to back up your data and to share, you just need to use this Sarah, you know, the higher folder will contain everything that you've worked on. Hopefully that's clear. But if you have questions, let me know. So I'm going to delete this project so I start from scratch in QGIS. Just going to open QGIS. And does everyone have like 3.12? Is that what you're using? If not, please tell me. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, just next time you open it, check that it's 3.12. And if it's not, let me know, because I think there were some pretty big changes recently added to 3.12. Okay, so project. Just going to do a new project. And then save it. I have this horrible tendency to create a project and do a bunch of stuff and then not save it and then like lose everything I did. So I'm just going to save it. And so in QGIS, the project files are .qgz instead of I forget what ARC is. It's like MPX or something, which means they're not compatible, unfortunately. I was trying to find if there's a way to pull in ARC projects into QGIS and there's not. Anyway, so just going to save this as Sarah Regen. There are multiple ways that you can add data. And so one way is there's this button all the way to the left that you click. That's the data source manager. And what's different about QGIS versus ArcGIS is that with ArcGIS, you know, you can add a raster, a vector, any kind of data just with like one button. You can also add like the base files with one button. With QGIS, you have to like, you know, you just add vector with one option or a raster. And there are all these different things that you could add. These are like the web-based services that a lot of states have web-based services where you can see their imagery. Like I know Maine, at least the Maine GIS office, they have like their latest imagery is posted with a web service, like a WMS. Anyway, so you can click on the vector button and you can add a vector data set this way. So let's, I think you could click on any one of these files. Let's add a boundary first. Invalid data source. Okay, maybe that didn't work so well. So I think I just had to click on SHP. I was just testing the system. Whoops. And I'm not perfect. Okay. There we go. So you see Sarah was just added in the background. This is the park boundary for Saratoga. And they have a couple of like small units that we don't monitor. Another way to do this, besides going to that vector button, is to click on browser and then define the files. Sorry, it's in a kind of far down directory for me. Let's add metric 1. And then add selected layers. See, it showed up. I think I accidentally did it twice. And like metric 4, so you can just double click on it actually instead of having to hit this add selected layers. So I just added the vegetation, metric 1 and 2 or 4, and then the boundary. I accidentally added metric 1 twice. Remove layer. The other way to do it, which I find super helpful and that I think is an improvement on ArcGIS, so let me delete all of these and do it again, is in this browser up here. You just can find it. You don't have to like add a folder like you do sometimes or add a drive like you do sometimes in ArcGIS. You can just find it. Select. And there you go. I really like that. And then it keeps this browser open, or this, you know, it keeps you at the location. So if you add another shapefile, it's going to be in the same place and you can get to it pretty easily. Okay. So that's adding the layers. And then I'm just going to do a couple of little like customizing the layers, and then maybe you guys we can break. You can start this for your park, and then we can see where we are. So just the last few things down here in the layers, there's order here. So you see that the Sarah boundary is basically on top of and blocking everything else. So it's important to like move it to the bottom. And to customize the colors, if you double click on a shapefile, then it brings you to the properties. Similar to ArcGIS, you double click on it, it brings you to the properties, although there's a lot more properties in here than in like ArcGIS. These diagrams are where we're going to make the pies from, just so you know. There are also a lot of features, sorry, for diagrams. There are a lot of features for masks, for the labels. We don't have any labels because we haven't really picked anything. But anyway, there's a lot of really helpful stuff in there that I think it's just worth kind of poking around to see how many different things you can do in the properties. So I think we're looking at the boundary here. Yeah, this is the boundary file. We want it to be the same boundary, but we want it to be empty. So the way to make it empty is you just click on the box that's the simple fill. And instead of the fill style being solid, you just make it no brush. So it made it empty. And then for the stroke width, I was going to make that a little bigger so you could just do that. So what I really like about QGIS versus ArcGIS again is that all of this is in, you know, one window versus I feel like in ArcGIS to change like a polygon's features to be like make the line width bigger and then make the color different. I feel like I have to go through like 3 different windows to find it, whereas this is it's all in one place. So I like that. Okay, so this is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. So now I'm actually going to put the boundary over the veg layer so you can see it. So yeah, there's the boundary still. And same with ArcGIS, you turn the layers on and off. So I'm going to zoom to our main unit where we have our plots. So yeah, zooms are, you know, kind of behave the same. This Magnifying glass with the arrow zooming out, that's the zoom full. I think ArcGIS is like a globe icon usually, but anyway, that's that. The keystrokes in ArcGIS don't work in QGIS, unfortunately, so the going back to previous view, I haven't figured out that keystroke yet, but I think it's this button. Yeah, these buttons go between previous views and not, so that's helpful. Okay, so the last thing is the vegetation map. So we're going to open the properties to make multiple colors, like based on the vegetation type, instead of being a single symbol in this symbology. We make it categorized. And then it seems like every park's vegetation map shapefile is a little different in the attribute table as far as like the fields they have. They all have some in common, but then there are others like in the New York parks, because the New York Natural Heritage Program did our vegetation maps. They have like their common name. These Anderson land units are, land use units are pretty good for us. They're pretty broad categories, so I'm actually going to use that. And then there's like Alliance, Association. Those are the formal ones that every vegmap has in common. Not every vegmap has like the local name. Again, that's like the Natural Heritage Program name, or it's like a park name for a community. But the association and the alliances are like the National Vegetation Classification. Okay, anyway, so let's go to Anderson, and then I'm going to click on classify. So it's going to give me all of the different land use types. And so this is where the hex codes come in handy. And I like the Anderson codes because they're like 1 through 17, or I think it's like 1 through 20 are kind of built up lands or some kind of paved land. And so they're kind of similar. 20 in the 20s is usually like some kind of agricultural land. So 21 is cropland. The 30s are usually open. The 40s are forest. The 60s are wetland. And so they're kind of already classified into broad categories, but this is still more than we need. So you can group categories. So we're going to group all of the under 20s. So you can select them and then merge them. And then you can like change, I think you can change how they're, the legend. Yeah, you can change the legend. So this is like, so these are all the developed lands, and the hex codes, like I said, if you click on the color and then the color here, there's a hex code right there. ArcGIS, it takes a while to find
Could
it.
you show that again? Your
Yes.
computer just lagged a little, so I didn't see what
Sorry.
you clicked.
Okay, so I'm back to the symbology window. I click on the box, the color fill, and then it shows me this, so I can select any color I want, and then I just select the color again, and then it brings me to color picker. So, so yeah, these are the windows that took me here. So it's really just like clicking on that color box.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'm just gonna get the hex code color for developed lands. And I'm just copying and pasting this from the spreadsheet that I showed you earlier. Where am I? Just put it there. It should be gray. Yep, I changed it to gray. So there's that. And then cropland and pasture, we have another color for. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. So, and I think herbaceous, let's put together cropland, pasture, and herbaceous rangeland. So I'm going to merge them again. And then click on the color and the color and change the hex code to make it like a pale yellow. Did it. and then I'm just going to apply. You click on the apply just like in ArcGIS. So the colors that I've changed so far are gray, which you can't see because there aren't a lot of developed lands, except for like this road. And then, oh, but cropland pasture didn't come in like the color I wanted. There. Oops. Why is that not? Oh, it did change. Sorry, it was just highlighted so it looked blue. My bad. So yeah, these are all cropland pasture. I'm just going to change one more because I don't like this color. So deciduous forest land, I am going to change to a nice green color. Okay, so you can just go through and make those changes. And again, we're looking to get, 6 or less colors for the habitat types. And every park is probably going to have its own decision based on what the dominant habitat types are and what we think is important to display as different. And then I think if you look at the point symbologies instead of polygons, it's similar. You double click on the shapefile, and here there are some like favorites, and you can save one. Like I'm pretty sure if you create one, you can save it as a favorite, so then you can like always use that again. And so we might end up wanting to do that for like, we tend to have a consistent symbol for plots that have nothing. So like when you show the pies or you show the bars on the maps, if there are plots that don't have any regeneration, we want to make that symbol different from a pie chart. And so for those, we may create a special symbol, like I think we have a red triangle or something sometimes. And so you can save it so you can just keep using it instead of having to create all of those like symbol and colors again. So we have our simple marker. Again, categorized is how you make it based off of your data with different symbols. There's the data in my shapefile I have to use for the diagrams, but let's hold off on the diagrams for a second. I'm just going to change the color to blue just for fun. Why did that not work? Oh, I don't want to categorize, sorry. Now I'm going to change it to blue. That should be better. Yeah, now those are giant blue circles. Okay, I'm gonna turn them on and off. There's my metric one. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and let's come back to video. Any questions? All right, so let's take 20 minutes so you can take a break and then also create a new project. Has anyone created a project with their data yet? Oh, you already have. Okay, well, go ahead and create a new project if you haven't. If you already have a project, open it up and get your metric 1 and 4, the vegetation shapefile, and the boundary, and get where I am. So have the boundary be not filled, so it's just like a black boundary, black line. Start to look at the vegetation types to see how you might want to classify it, and then maybe that's it. So is that enough? Okay, so we'll be back at like 9:45. Okay.
I wasn't able to find a boundary layer for Valley Forge, but it's possible that there just isn't one in the folder, which I don't think there is, but that's the only problem.
All of the they're not. It's actually like one boundary layer for all the parks.
Mm.
So you have to go up one folder. Like outside of the parks, there's like an MPS boundary.
Gotcha.
Because that's how they have been doing it down here. And then you can like zoom to your park like shapefile, like for your plots. But we can, if that's not working, we can find park specific boundaries. But that was the most updated boundary file that I could find. So
Gotcha. I found it. I was just confused because some of the other parks had like boundary named files.
yeah, I found a whole bunch of different data. So yeah, we'll see what works. I think a lot of it, I think that if we can, we should use the 2017 like all park boundary. I think that's the most up to date, and the ones individual parks I think are often missing, you know, more recent additions to the parks. However, that does mean, actually it's interesting. So I'm just doing Richmond just to play around with it. And like the park boundary is like, I don't know, there's like twice as much park as what there's vegmap for, which is pretty cool. And like same with Petersburg, like just 2 years ago, they've acquired like a huge amount of land that I think that one actually is still in the process of being transferred over. But a lot of these parks are actively acquiring new battlefield and stuff, which is cool, but hard to like stay on top of. But we don't have to worry about where we don't have forest plots, so that's okay.
Yeah, so sorry we didn't mention that there's a like MIDN complete boundary for you to use. I actually didn't realize that was the case either. So I'm just looking at it. No, that's okay. And so it can only be one projection, even though we actually have two in Mid-Atlantic because there's zone 17 and zone 18. I am assuming that that is zone 18. I was just going to try to check the projection of it. And so if you're in APCO or Booker T, Washington, and you're pulling in your data is going to be in the correct zone 17 that you created in R, but the shapefile that is the boundary for all of Midden, that is probably going to be in 18. And so I think, Camilla, you found that there was a conflict in the projections, or at least like QGIS told you.
Yeah, well, something was coming in as like an unknown. Did anybody else get asked like to choose a projection? You were getting that? Yeah. Yeah, so you can set it. I can share my screen. So this worked for Richmond. So did anybody do APCO or Booker T this time? Yes, you did. Okay. All right. I'll show my thing, and then maybe we'll see what happened with you, Kala. But so anyway, I have it not complaining now. So we'll see. So here's Richmond. So you can see the boundary layer is like much bigger. But anyway, if you go down in this bottom right corner, so I've set it to the correct projection right now, but before it was saying unknown. Did anybody have that? I don't know.
I think I have that you have. Sorry.
It says, okay, so I don't know really what's going on. I might have added something or messed around with something, but anyway, if it does complain at you, because I was getting a warning that said like, what did it say? Like used ballpark to convert to like whatever projection. So anyway, you can hit down there and then it brings you to the CRS like management area, and you can search for 269.18. And so that would give you, I can type, that would give you the one that we're looking for. And then you can select that and apply it if you have to. So I did that, and I think at some point I set it as a default, which you'd have to, because you can go, if you hit on a particular shapefile, you can hit properties, and is that where I did this? I don't know. I think I'm just missing on here, so I can't remember what I did.
Yeah,
But
the
there,
properties
yeah.
and the information tells you the,
There we go.
or yeah, the source and the information.
Yeah, I hit it. I got another. I think it was when adding. Anyway. Yeah. So when you're first adding a shapefile and it asks you for projection, I think at that point you can set things as a default. I don't know if anyone saw that. Anyway, I'll stop sharing my screen.
So yeah, I was looking at the projection for the MIDN FEM Parks 2017, and it's got a weird projection, and it's a projection that it doesn't have an EPSG code, so it's not like a universal code. I don't know how this was created and who manages this shapefile, but the projections that you're setting in R in your shapefiles are the correct ones, and if you say that that's the default projection for your project, then it should pull those in correctly. And if it doesn't, if your points are in a completely different location than like the boundary of the park, then obviously something's going on and we need to figure it out. But I think QGIS is smart enough. If you say use the projection of this shapefile, which we know is right, the ones that you create, it should be able to make the rest work.
Yeah, and everything's lining up for me right now, and I imagine it is for you guys as well. You certainly would have noticed. So that seems to be okay. And I can go find boundaries for the individual parks, and I can ask each park too. We need an updated version as well. So we'll see. If this starts to get weird, we can get separate boundary files.
And sometimes they're on IRMA. Like
Yeah.
Diana, you mentioned IRMA. IRMA is like our repository for all NPS related reporting and geospatial data. And parks are supposed to post their official boundary layers. And anytime they update, they're supposed to be posted on IRMA. And some parks are better at doing that than others.
Yeah, I found that to not be right. It's generally, the one that you want is generally not there, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. So I think so does everyone have, they have a map with their the park and the vegetation shapefile and their points. They see that. Okay. So I'm going to show a couple more things we can do, and then I'm going to do the layout panel. And but before I do that, has everyone, you know, when I'm talking about map versus layout, like what that is in the ArcGIS context? Okay, it's the same idea with QGIS, which is super helpful, and it's nice that they're using the same name. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I'll show you the template that we have that you can use. And it's also on the in the Google Drive. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen now. Okay, do you see my map? Hopefully. All right, so I made my colors pretty while we had time. I used the colors that are in the park assignments, or sorry, the forest metrics, to come up with a color scheme for my vegetation map. And I think because the habitats are, you know, their background, they're there to be informative, but not to be like, you know, the star of the show. The plots are what are going to be that. I made the opacity not 100% on all of mine. So again, if you click on the color box, the opacity is here. So I made all of mine 70% so that it's not quite as vivid when you look at it. The difference between ArcGIS and QGIS that maybe I don't love is when you're setting opacity so that there's some transparency in your color. You have to do it for every single one of these. instead of in ARC. My memory is that you do it for the entire shapefile. So I don't know if maybe you start out with a simple fill if you make the opacity and then you create the classified categories. Like maybe they'll come in as opaque. I don't know. But anyway, I set each one of these to be 70% just by, moving this.
I had a question about that.
Yeah.
Screen. For my values, I didn't have that option. So, like, what option should I use to classify the values as?
Like here,
Yeah.
Okay.
I had like the Alliance one and maybe a couple others, and that was the only vegmap that was in my file.
Okay. What which park is it? Just out of curiosity.
Hopewell Furnace.
Hopewell Furnace. Okay. Camilla, do you remember what you used when you did Hopewell Furnace?
I'll go check. Yeah, the Richmond layer also doesn't have Andersonii. I used local name.
Okay. Yeah, you may have to use, I'm trying to remember if Alliance or Association is, which one is the higher level? I think Alliance is the higher level. Let me actually look at the attribute table for this. Open attribute table, that's the same as ARC. That's great. You just scroll over. They both look pretty detailed. I think Alliance is the higher level. So, for the parks that don't have that Anderson code, you use Alliance, and you're just going to have to group more. So you're going to have to read each. I'll open this again. Read each one of these alliances, just kind of like sort them and figure out what that means. So this is obviously an open wetland. This is a cattail marsh.
That's what I had to do for Hopewell.
Okay.
So I basically grouped, it'd be like, like oak, hickory, talus slope, and then it would be like acidic oak. And then, I grouped those into deciduous forest.
So yeah, sorry, it may not be as simple if you don't have the Anderson codes, but you still just, make your best guess, and then we'll kind of vet it and make sure that it makes the most sense for that park. And if you want, you can maybe on this, either like if you have kind of a shapefile or a spreadsheet where you're tracking your progress, if you want to have like, okay, so for Hopewell, these are the communities that I put into deciduous forest, and these are the communities I put into the other category, just so we can make sure that it makes sense. I don't even know what all the communities are that you're going to come across, so I think that might help to be a part of the deciding what this background is going to look like. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And you should be able to like, see, let me open the attribute table again. You should be able to just, I think you can export this. Somewhere you should be able to export it. I've never tried it.
Well, one of the videos had you just like copy all of it and then paste it. And that was how they showed you in the video.
Really?
And then just paste it into an Excel file. It's like, okay. But I guess that's easy enough.
See how that works. Oops. Yeah, I guess that worked. Okay. And then I guess you could do like, just, oh gosh, okay. Something went wrong. Anyway, you paste it over and then do like subtotals, like delete everything except for like the Alliance English. And then if you do subtotals, it will like condense it down to all of the unique, or is there a unique formula here?
You can
Does that
do
work?
remove duplicates.
Oh
That
yeah,
would
there you
probably do
go.
it.
Yeah, so let's delete everything except this is the Alliance English, and then remove duplicates. Now I have all of my unique alliances, and then there you can then create another field that's like, this is the habitat that I put it in, and open wetland. So just do that so you have kind of a good track of where you put which habitat in case we decide that it needs to change, or we decide we want to split out one of the habitats. You can find it and then change it. Does that make sense? Gonna close this. Okay. Close that. Okay, so apparently I am selecting every single record because I selected every record in my attribute table, and now I need to figure out how to unselect, which I know how to do in ARC. Let's see. Is this an unselect? Yay! That's the unselect. It looks like a post-it note with like a line through it, like a no select. So there you go. Okay. What was I gonna do? Oh, let's start here. So so again, I said that I made all of my habitats transparent. I also took off the outline. I kind of like for the habitats to not have outlines, and so I'll show you how to do that. So again, I clicked on the color, the box for developed lands, and if you go to simple fill, you can do the stroke style. That the stroke is the outline in QGIS. So you just say no pen instead of solid line. So it comes in a solid line. That's the default. And if you just do no pen, it takes it off. And then, yeah, so I did that to all of them. So it's a little tedious because it's like now for each habitat, like each polygon color, you have to like set it the way you want it, versus I feel like in ArcGIS, if you set it the way you want it before you classify, it'll carry that over. So if I took off the outline when it was just the simple fill and then made it, you know, the multiple categories, it would carry through that outline. I don't know if that's going to do that in QGIS, but it's at least easy enough to find how to do that. And it's really always like double clicking on the shapefile will take you to the bigger properties. And then within there in the symbology, you can change things by clicking on the color boxes. You can also, similar to ArcGIS, if you just click on the color box next to the category, it will take you just to that like more refined window to change things.
Yeah, and I would just like to point out the save symbol again. Like that'll be because that will save it for your next map. And so you set your deciduous forest, and then you can just choose deciduous forest instead of taking the boundary like line off and setting the transparency and all that stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
At least I assume I haven't obviously made a second map, but.
Sorry, which symbol?
Can you open that again, Kate? I guess. What did you say, Diana?
I was just confused. Oh, I see. Save symbol.
Save symbol, yeah. So then you could just call it, yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, it didn't show up. Let me try again. Let me see if it shows up. No, it didn't show up. Maybe if I go into all, okay, you have to go into all symbols. So maybe I wonder if I can make this a favorite. Oh, maybe I have to tag it as a favorite. Let me try one more time. So save symbol. add to favorites.
Yeah, we're gonna find everything by the end of this.
Yeah, right. Oops, I don't want a gradient fill. That was a mistake. If that happens to you, the minus button will take it away. So now I'm back to my simple fill. That's not what I want. There we go. Sorry, somehow I changed it. But okay. There we go. Now I'm back to having the option. Is my develop lands in the option yet? No, because I messed up. Oh, I made, this is what I made develop lands on accident. All right, I'm having a minor.
I will say, like yeah, figuring this out, like, and hitting the wrong menu options and whatever is like moderately annoying, but it takes ArcGIS 15 seconds to open the properties box on my computer, and so this is just the fact that you can just screw up, but like instantly continue screwing up is less frustrating than waiting 15 seconds for the property box to open and then be like, that's not the one I wanted, close it, and then wait another 5 seconds for the attributes table to open. So I'm still enjoying this.
Okay, I'm going to try to save this as developed lands. So save symbol, add to favorites. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I agree. Like, there's going to be some like fumbling your way through, and I do it like crazy. And every time I open QGIS, I'm like, oh yeah, I know I figured it out. I don't remember how. And so then it's a little more fumbling. But I feel like in some ways it's a little faster to get to the answer than it is ArcGIS, partially because like Camilla said, it just like seems to run faster. And there are fewer like sub windows that you have to get where you're trying to go. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So I think now let's create a layout. So we're gonna go to the layout manager under the project. So I'll do it again. So project, layout manager, and so let's call this Sarah metric 1. And what I've done for you is I've created a layout. Whoops. For you already. So I'm going to, I think this is going to be I have a portrait and a landscape layout. And these are on the Google Drive. I will tell you exactly where they are. It's just in the highest folder. So 2024 crew, within there's this QGIS templates. And within there, you have the landscape and the portrait template for QGIS. And then there's also the arrowhead that goes in the upper right corner. And you have to have that arrowhead wherever your template is so it can find it, because it's linked to that picture instead of like having that picture. Whoops, did I not create a layout? Did I just screw up? Okay. Oh. Okay, maybe that's not what I mean to do. Let's do an empty layout first. Oh, I see. Sorry. So I got the template. I got specific instead of it says empty is the default. I'm picking specific. I just needed to press create. I may be doing this wrong. Oh no, this is what I want. So this is the layout now. For some reason, the arrowhead is not coming through. And so the layout in some ways is it's going to take a little getting used to, but I actually quite like it. So everything in here is some kind of item over here on the right. So, and I named them in the template so that it's a little easier to find. If you add things, it's just like it'll say like item 1, item 2, and just keep numbering up, and then you can name them yourself. You can turn them on and off. So that's the map outline. If you're trying to like pinpoint something, cycle 4, you see, this is the little fill for cycle 4. And then that's the text. So let's like turn all of these off for a second. That's the right heading, north arrow. Now I'm just looking for the arrowhead. Something is weird about the arrowhead. So everything has a properties that's in this box here too. So you just like click on the item properties and it'll take you down there. And so the image source here is not coming through. So I'm just gonna try to relink that. There we go, it came through. So it's possible you may have that problem. And so you'll just have to, it should be named arrowhead in your template. And so you just right click on it, item properties, and then the image source, you might have to set it to work with your computer. Actually, I'm sure you'll probably have to set it to work with your computer because it's probably not going to be in the same directory that I have it in the template. Let's see, so each map is going to get a metric name. That's this map title, I believe. Yeah, so the map title, you'll end up changing. And again, if you go into the item properties, this is, you know, there are all these properties. And if you scroll down somewhere, is the name that you can change. Am I not in the properties? Oh, yeah, sorry. I have it. It's in like HTML. So, so here, this is where you would say like map 1. Regeneration by size class. I forget what our title is. It's whatever we had in Morristown. Example. So there, that's how you change that. Up here in this banner part, so it says Mid-Atlantic Network Forest Vegetation Monitoring Program. I think for the NCBN parks, we'll change Mid-Atlantic to Northeast Coastal and Barrier. So that's the left heading. So you can see left heading. So you just change Mid-Atlantic to Northeast Coastal and Barrier. And there it changed. And then obviously the park name. So park name here, that should be the right heading somewhere right here. So change that to, here's the park name. So we'll change this to here I'm in Saratoga. And it's possible there's some really long park names, like Fredericksburg is like Fredericksburg is Spotsylvania National Military Park. I think that's the longest one. If it has to go over 2 lines, it can. So actually, let's just test that. Where was that? There we go. Looks like it might be cutting it off a little bit. So I think I can make this bigger. Ah, okay. Sorry about that, Zoom. That was a little frightening. To make this size different, position and size in the item properties again. So X and Y is where it's like anchored according to the page. And then size and width and height, you can make the height bigger. Did that do it? No? Okay, you can also make it bigger if you're selected. There we go. So that came in better. So you might have to do that. But I think most of the parks will actually fit in one line. We'll go back to Saratoga. And just one weird thing about Park Service that I don't know if you've noticed yet, but if it's a historic site, it's historic, not historical. If it's a historical park, it's historical with the AL. I do not know why, but park managers get, like, for some reason annoyed if you don't remember that. So remember, historic site, historical park. Okay, so we got our layout. Now we have to add the map. Did I turn off the map? Oh, this is going to be the map caption. Again, we'll give you the captions and you'll just copy them here. I'm going to turn everything back on just so I can see what I got. Okay, so now we need to add the map. So go to add item and add map. And then just draw the box where the map is going to go. And there we go. There's my Saratoga. Whoops. So some of the stuff with ArcGIS or with QGIS is a little weird, like having to add the map like that. And then like clicking and selecting, like it's picking the highest thing, meaning like the highest thing on this list, which is the map outline, which covers everything, which can be kind of annoying. So I'm going to put the actual map above the map outline so that that's the top thing that I click. Okay, yeah, that's better. Then move this down. So now that's a problem actually. So this is on top of everything. So I actually want my map to be lower so that like the legend and all of that shows up. Whoops. Sorry.
Still like that a lot more than send to back. You know,
Yeah.
the fact that you can actually select everything instead of like, you know, hiding things from yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's visual. You can see what level things are versus send it back is just like, you know, you're putting that at the very back, but you don't necessarily know the order that things are hanging out on top of each other. So I also set, does it come in your background as gray, or is that a setting that I did for myself? I like the background being gray is my point, but when you guys have a map, is the like nothing area, is it white or is it gray? Anyone know?
Sorry, I haven't gotten that far yet. I don't mean to just stay quiet.
Oh no,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
okay.
not sure. Could you also show how to get back into the editor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So wait, what do you mean the editor? Sorry.
Like this screen that you're in, how do you get there from the main program?
Great.
It's
Yeah.
actually a different window, which is so much better in my opinion.
Yeah, do you see it's a different window?
Oh wow, I like that a lot.
Yeah, this is where if you have two monitors, it's going to be really helpful because like I'm going to move this layout over to my second monitor, and then I have my map on the first monitor. So if I need to change, like if I want to turn shapefiles on or off, I can do that here in the map, and then to get back to my layout. So this is the map again. So this is what I was talking about. In your map is the, you know, the nothing area, which is this gray part. Is that gray for you or is it white?
Oh, mine's white.
White, okay. So I set this as a default because I kind of like having gray in the background instead of like stark white. So let me see if I can find how I did that. I think it's just in properties. Yeah. So I went to, let me go back. So project, which seems to be where a lot of things are living. So the project, properties of my project. And here we have some information in the general settings, and I have my background color set to D4, D4, D4. I am going to put that into the spreadsheet.
Just a comment, but I love their color picker. That's like the best color picker in my opinion.
It is pretty nice, isn't it? It really, you can do all kinds of things. And then like,
It's nice that it separates the values in the same color picker.
Yeah, and the hex code is front and center. That is not something that is quick to find in ArcGIS and to set. So yeah, so that's my background color. Again, I did it that way. And then I just put in the hex number, and I added that to this the spreadsheet. So the map background is D4, D4, D4. I don't know what those numbers and letters mean, but that's how I got that. So I think we should all have that because I do think it's kind of the less bright white on the maps that we give people. I feel like it's nice. Like I think a lot of people are starting to change their like color schemes on software, so it's a little darker because I think everyone starts to get kind of eye glare from the white. So I like the gray background. Okay. So right, so I have the map. Now I'm going to go to the layout. So you just go back to project and layout manager, and here's the layout that I made. So do that, and I think you just double click and it takes you back to the window with your layout. So I'm going to maximize this. And then what's kind of interesting that I found about layouts in QGIS versus ArcMap is that, oops, it's, you kind of have to, so when I added the map for Saratoga, it added it so it's like pretty zoomed out. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to zoom into the map, like make the map bigger on my page. Sorry, and it's taking me a second to figure it out. So how do I do that?
I think,
Yep.
Do you have to go back to the map?
I think it's actually in, if I click on map 1 in the item properties, I think this is it. Yeah, so that's one way to do it, to make sure that it's the same. And
Yeah, I was trying to figure this out yesterday, and from like the help I was reading, like you should be able to like pan and zoom in your, map window,
okay.
and then refresh in your layout, because it doesn't refresh automatically, but you can hit those little like arrows next to the zoom extent, and that's supposed, but it didn't work for me.
Okay.
I don't know if it was, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the map. Whoops. Okay, my computer's having problems right now. Just a second, it kind of froze up. There we go. Right, I'm gonna go back to my layout. Oh, there's also another way to. Oh, okay. The layout manager will have all your layouts. This layouts also will show them. Okay, so that did zoom in for me. It is a little like, can't I just like move it? I thought there was better zooming. So this may be one of the things where QGIS is not quite as good. Oh, wait. Interactively, okay, here we go. There's interactively edit the extent, And so maybe this will let me do it. No? Oops.
When I clicked the interactively edit extent, if you use your like wheel on your mouse, it'll zoom in and out, and it's letting me move the map around.
Oh, that's cool.
I
So
also.
Go ahead. I think my computer's frozen. I'm actually going to close this and open it back up. Go ahead, Diana.
I also just found if you go to edit and then move content, it lets you do the same thing that Katie just said. Zoom in and out and then move the map.
Okay, good to know. Let me see if I can do what you just said.
Although I'm not sure if there's like a more manual way of setting the extent, but in any case, I think there was in the video.
Was it the edit move content? Is that what you said?
Yep, that was.
Oops, but that's not what I meant to do. Edit, move content.
And then you can hopefully just move it around. Huh.
For some reason mine's locked.
Hmm.
But can you share your screen and show me how you do it?
Yeah.
Because I'm obviously not figuring it out.
Hold on. So here should be my window. I just have move content selected, and then it just lets me kind of play around with it.
Oh.
I'm like scrolling my mouse wheel right now.
Okay.
Stop sharing. And I don't know if that's what you were doing, Katie, as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening on my screen too. So
I think it's something with the template or something, because I also am locked and can't move mine, and I'm in the template.
Okay, so that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense why it's locked for me and not for the folks that don't have the template open. So I'm gonna have to try to figure out what's going on there. I'm sorry.
I think yeah, go back. I think if you well, my template, my map outline was locked. I unlocked it, and then I managed to do it, and I wasn't able to before. So maybe that's it.
Can you demo that for us?
Maybe. Okay, let's see. I feel a little crazy, like I did the same thing 100 times and like it did the, inexplicably worked once or twice. But I've got move content on. And, oh no, it is working. Nope. Yeah, it's working. And it is locked. So I don't know.
Does it have anything to do with the lock that's in the bottom bar on the top? Does that make sense? There's like the lock selected items and unlock selected items. I have no idea. This is just an idea.
I don't know.
It's next to the little like refresh symbol.
Oh, over here?
Yeah. Stuff.
Well, I didn't. Yeah.
it might also have to do with Camilla. I just noticed that your map is on the topmost layer, and Kate moved hers to the bottom. So
maybe. The thing is, it wasn't working. Now it's not working. Let me unlock. I probably have to now. Yeah, I think it does have to do with the locking.
Okay,
But-
yeah, I figured it out too. I had to turn off my map outline to be able to do. I think what kept happening is I was selecting my map outline to edit, and like that's just a box. That's just, the outline. So if you turn your map outline off up in the top right, just uncheck that box,
This one?
the map outline. And then, at least for me, because my map outline was on the very top, and then I was able to edit, move content,
Okay.
and then move that around and zoom in and out with the roller bar on my mouse.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like, well, because mine is checked and I can do those things. So
Okay.
I feel like I'm not sure. But it could be that the map's at the top. Let's see.
This is so funny because yesterday while I was watching the videos and they explained how easy it was to adjust the map in this, I was like, wow, so much better than GIS. But clearly, they made
Yeah.
it look easier than it is.
I know. And like it's inexplicable, but I just moved map down and I can't do anything. So I wonder, which seems annoying and stupid.
Yeah. I
but-
think it's the template because of that box, that map outline box is the entire, it covers everything. And so it just keeps selecting that first because it's on top. But if you just turn it off, then you can get to everything else, it seems like.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Well, there had to be something annoying.
Yeah.
Can't all be perfect.
Yeah, I'll be perfect. So I got mine to work. I'll just show again how I did it. And this is what you all told me to do. So maybe I don't need to demo it. But yeah, I turned off my map outline because it's covering everything. And then I went to edit, move content, and it let me move things around. And I will say, especially for those, well, I think everyone has at least one park with multiple units. You're going to want to make sure that you're showing everything or you're mapping everything in the same unit or the same resolution. And so let me get back to my map. In the item properties, the scale is whatever it is. I think we tend to do like 1 to 24,000 or 1 to 36,000 or somewhat even numbers. It doesn't really matter that much as long as this scale matches for all the units that you're trying to show, which can make it a little challenging, especially for like Richmond or Petersburg. But I think it's important to show each unit in the same scale because the park managers are used to seeing them relative to each other size-wise. And so if like one unit is suddenly bigger than the others just because of the way you mapped it, they're going to be like, South Forks is not bigger than, the other units. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's under the item properties. So another really great thing about QGIS is you can have multiple layouts in one project. So here's my Sarometric one. I'm going to close that. I'm going to save my project. And now I'm going to create another layout. And here's my other layout. I didn't add the Park Service template to it, but yeah, now I have two layouts. And so if I go to project layouts, it shows both layouts. And once you get, I'm in layout 1 again, once you get the map and everything the way that you want it, you can turn off or you can freeze the map. So I'm going to lock the layers for map 1. And so until I unlock the layers, this map for Saratoga will stay the same unless I unlock and refresh it. So you can kind of have all of your layouts in one project if you want. I'm going to unlock that right now. And so you can just keep, I have metric 1 here, and then I also have metric 4. And so, you can do all the things on the same background so that you don't have to like make a new map for Saratoga. You can do all the things together, and then just as you have what you want when you're ready, you create a new layout, put the map in it, and then lock that map. again or lock the layers in the layout. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is pretty exciting, really.
Yeah. Okay. Zoom into that again. Let's see, what else did we have for today's, what we were going to cover? Okay. So let's see, I guess everyone, if you could now create a layout for your park, if you haven't already, and try to add the template, and I'll show you what the template is. Sorry. Okay, so 2024's crew, this is the folder everyone has access to. And this QGIS templates, just copy these files and put them on your computer somewhere. And then see if you can make a layout that adds these templates. So let's come back to video for a second. All right. Is that enough direction? Do you think that you probably can figure out how to do that? If we break for like 15 minutes, if you could get from having a map with your layers to having a layout with the Park Service template. Okay, so let's try to get to that by 10:45, 10:47, 10:47. Give you 10 full minutes. Okay.
I gotta say, I was skeptical about QGIS, but totally sold on it. It's awesome. It like fixes all the things that I hate about ArcMap.
Just something that I found also when you're doing the categorize vegetation cover, if you control and select all of them and right click, you can change the opacity of all of them at once.
Great. Thank you for finding that. I thought maybe there was a way to do it. I just didn't find it, so I'm glad you did. So how's everyone doing? You got something working? Did you get the arrowhead to show? That's great. Okay, so the last thing I was going to do, and I ran out of time to figure it out on my own, but I was going to do the pies. So we're going to make the symbols into pies, and I think that's tomorrow's reading, but we can show it and then you can read more about it and see how it's explained properly versus my stumbling. But yeah, so I'll do that right now. You should see my screen now. Gonna open the layout again. Oh wait, no, I don't want to do it in the layout. I have to do it in the map. My bad. Okay, so metric 1. Whatever. Okay. So under diagrams, let me make this wider. So instead of symbology, it's diagrams. And up at the very top, I find this easy to miss, but this is the first thing you have to do. Is change from no diagrams to you have pie chart, text diagram. I don't know what that is. Histogram or stacked bars. So we will use the histogram for, I think metric 4 is a histogram, but for metric 1, it's going to be a pie chart. And the attributes here, this is going to be seedling size classes pie chart. So I selected the attributes. This is your attribute table. If you opened it, these would be the columns in your attribute table. And so you're going to select, these are the seedling size classes, and the plus sign will move them over. So now we have seedlings, the different size classes. For the legend, you can change it, which is helpful because that's what it's going to print. Okay, so these are our size classes. To change the colors, you just click on the color box. And again, we have hex codes for the different size classes. So I'm just going to copy those in. So it's a light blue for the smallest category. So I'm just taking these directly off of the spreadsheet. Then press OK. So those are the colors we want for different size classes. And the size, we're going to have a scaled size. And this is what I haven't figured out yet. In ArcGIS, it will sum together all of those size classes for you. And so you can say, you know, based on all the categories that we're using in our pie, sum those together and then make, you know, the pie size relative to the total sum. I think you have to create a new column in QGIS that adds them up together, and I just haven't figured that out yet. But for now, let's just let all of the points be the same size so you can see what happens. So after I did all of that, they should plot as a pie chart. But it didn't. Why did it not? Do I have to press apply? Is that it? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out like why. Let me try to fit. Yeah, I just did it and it worked. Oh, I think it's because I had a scaled size. Yeah. So I never completed. I'll show you again. So back to this pie chart where I said, let's make a pie chart. I had scaled size, but then I never told it what that scale size was in the attribute. So let's just leave it as fixed size right now, and then it shows up. So these are the pie charts. Why is it showing my... It's showing the points too.
There's if you go to placement, there's a choice around point or over point.
Thank you. Yeah. So right. So I changed placement to over point. There we go. So now basically the pies are behaving like the points, and then there's one plot that doesn't have any regeneration. So you see there's like a circle, an empty circle. I'm hoping that there's an option that we can say for zeros, make it something. But if not, like I think what we've done as a hack in ArcGIS is you can delete the point that doesn't have anything from your pie shapefile and then have like a separate shapefile. Hold on. That's in the background that will have the point. So there's got to be a way to make that gray circle just be what you see and not that bigger circle.
Yeah, I have
Sorry.
more confidence that we'd be able to figure it out in QGIS, whereas in Arc, I just like, I don't know, I just go for the inelegant. I'm chopping it out of my shapefile and putting in another one. I don't know, give up. But I feel like we could figure something out here. I don't know.
Yeah. So we got overpoint. There aren't a lot of options. Oh, I wonder if it's... No, I want to show all diagrams. Well, we'll figure it out. Maybe somebody will figure it out before I do, but something to kind of play around with. Let's forget about that for now. So the things that I'm going to add a little note, things that I need to figure out. And if you figure it out before me, great. But one is how to calculate the total category so that we can size it based on the pie size based on total. And how to not show a pie that's empty. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. But we got close. You know, we got some pies. Now I want to eat pie. What else was I going to show? Let's do metric 4 as this is a bar plot. So if we go to properties, whatever, gonna move this over. Again, we're gonna do diagrams instead of symbology. We're gonna make this a histogram. And the attributes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, we have colors for cycle 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the legend, we can do that. I don't know why that's happening. I need to look at why that's happening. Okay, so I got these guys. I press apply. Put it over the point. For some reason it's not displaying. It's displaying the points again.
Mine is stuck on scaled size instead of it, like it won't let you click fixed size, so that might be why it's not displaying them.
Oh, I see. Okay. So that's, thank you, Katie. That's exactly the problem. So let's just scale it on cycle 1. Maybe that will work. Maximum value. Oh, I see. So this is like the height of the maximum value for the bar height with the set. So it's a little manual versus ArcGIS just assumes. So I'm going to open this and find out what the highest seedling count is. So far it looks like around 68,000. This is in per hectare. All right, 68,000 from cycle 3, I think.
Just another note, the little E symbol next to the attribute comes up with a calculator, so you can make a.
Oh, look at that. Thank you. Okay, that's not very pretty, but I want that to be over the point. How about use that? So the bars are starting to show up. It's just going to take some tweaking to make them look good. So if you go into this rendering part, so I'm still in the symbol properties, the bar width and bar spacing, probably want to make that a lot smaller. So if I do like 1 and 1, that makes them a lot smaller. So probably, and bar spacing, I don't think we really want to space them that far apart. Okay, so that's good. Somewhere we've got to be able to turn off the point in the background, but at least you can see like this is how it goes. I wonder if I do symbology. Can I make it none? What's a mask? Oh yeah, mask turned them off. So let me try that again. I'm going to go back to the pies and see if that worked for the pies. So properties. We're here. This is where we made our diagrams. Go back to symbology. Click on the symbology, and instead of simple marker, make it a mask. And that goes away. So that at least goes away. So there aren't points in the background. Still need to figure out how to make the no pie show up as nothing and then something in the background. Hold on, sorry about that. So if I open the attributes, there's a plot with no. Oh, this is a weird null value in here, but okay, so plot 27 doesn't have any regeneration. So we need to figure out how to make that just be a point by itself. And then in the legend, there will be a separate symbol for no regeneration. And so I'll show what that looks like in our example for Morristown. So we're using a different color to indicate that there's no regeneration. So plot 9, 27, and 5 in Morristown, they don't have any regeneration. So we'll want to do that too. I just can probably do it in a hacky way. by just having the symbology, turning off the diagrams. And I think, so in symbology, here's my window. If you categorize your plot number, so it was plot number 27 that I needed, just like classify all of them, but then like remove all but 27. Oh, can't I just remove them? Well, I'm going to merge them all and then try to delete them. Oh, I see. Sorry. Okay. It's this. Oops. Nope. Not delete all. Obviously, not delete all. That's stupid. Let me do it again. It's just the plus or minus button. So I'm going to select all but 27. And it's going to get rid of all but 27. Don't want all of the variables. And then I can make my simple marker be something special. Like, let's just say it's red for now. So that's going to be the no data. So it's just going to show that. And then might have to delete looks like the attributes are only like a column thing, not a row thing, but I wonder where was the size? I know that we may just have to like go into the attribute table, and I think to edit attribute table you have to press this pencil, and then that allows you to edit it, and then delete that feature, and then now it goes away. So that may be what you have to do. There may be a more sophisticated direct way to do it, but for now, at least that's how I got rid of the plot that didn't have any regeneration. It's empty pie. Probably the easier thing will be when we actually size these relative to how much seedling or how many seedlings they have. That symbol is going to be so small to non-existent instead of being a big open circle that you're not going to have to worry about that. You're just going to have your shapefile that has the plot with no data showing for the special symbol, have that on top of the pie so that it plots that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question, do you mind?
Yep. Yeah.
Could you, I'm having trouble getting the histogram to show up. I was wondering if you could go over the scaled size.
Yes.
Do the scaled size again, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to add this shapefile again, just to start over to make sure I know how to do it correctly. Okay, so I added it back. Those are all my points. All right, so I went to 3D view. Nope, no, I didn't. I went to diagrams and then histogram. And then it was first I had to add the attributes over. Ooh. I think this is what Katie just told us. Oh, but I don't want to do that for bars. Never mind. My bad. Okay, so we added the attributes over. And now we go to size, and it's a scaled size. So you're basically having to tell it which attribute to use. I think it was 3 had the biggest one. So how do you? know. I need to figure some of that stuff out. But anyway, so 3, and I had manually found that like 68,000 was the highest number because it's in seedlings per metric, and then the bar length. So I think I applied that, and then it's really big and weird. So then I went back to rendering, and this is where I set the bar width to be really small. So it's 1 millimeter width, and then 0.5 millimeters for the space between them. And then that took me to here. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I missed that you manually added the maximum value.
Okay.
For some reason, it allows you to pick a maximum value, but it doesn't give you the same, like when you click find.
Oh.
Oh wait, it did for you. So I guess, I don't know what happened.
Cool.
But yeah, I was trying to find it and it wasn't letting me. It was giving me like 3, and it's like, that's not right. So.
Okay. Oh, I see. So I think you have to pick the attribute first. So I picked column 1, it's fine, and it's going to be lower. But we found cycle 3 had the highest seedling count. So if I put 3, that's the cycle 3, then fine, it's giving me the max. So I guess you can do it in here. Just, you know, go through, find, see which cycle has the most, and use that. And then I think the bar length, I want it to be a little bigger, so I made it 7 here. Let's see if that looks better. Yeah, that's a little better. We might still want to make it a little bigger. You just have to play around.
I have another question.
Yeah.
For the values, I think I might have done the wrong units for these because all of my values are like numbers with decimals.
I was just gonna say.
So what value, like what unit were we supposed to do it in?
No, you guys are good. The thing is that Kate's in NETN, so she's doing seedlings per hectare or whatever. But you guys are using your Mid-Atlantic shapefiles, which are seedlings per meter. So
okay.
You're good.
Thank you.
They're just going to be a lot smaller values.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was getting like 3 and 2 and 1. It's like that just okay.
Yeah, I mean that is low. That's like not enough seedlings per meter for a stocked forest, but it is in the right ballpark.
Yeah, and so to convert what you have to what I have, there are 10,000 square meters in a hectare. So multiply your number by 10,000, you have the units that I'm in, which that's why I'm in 60,000. There were 6 seedlings per square meter. Okay. Any questions? Oh, let's turn off these. You see the circles in the background again? Now that I figured out how to turn those off, I'm going to turn them off again just so you can see. So it is under, you go back to symbology and you change your stipple marker to a mask, and then it's no longer visible. So they're gone. Okay. All right, let's come back to video. I'm going to turn off my screen. Okay.
So are you going to be going over like the pie chart, how to make the plots with no regeneration their own symbol again tomorrow?
I can do that. I can do that right now again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I understand, but I think I might have also got a little lost.
Well, I fumbled my way to the answer, which is probably how you got lost. So now that I know what I'm doing, I'll show it to you again. And yeah, okay, so I can share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to delete my layers just to get them out of the way. So I'm basically starting from scratch. Okay, so I'm back to just, you know, the base map. So I will add this is metric 1. And if I go into the properties here, so first I'm going to go to diagrams. I'm going to say I want the pie chart. And I'm going to make my pie chart. Did my pies show up? Yeah, I'm not going to do the colors and everything. Placement, I'm going to be over point, press apply. Source, nope, symbology. I'm going to make these simple markers a mask so they go away. So I still have my empty pie for plot 27. So I'm going to go to the attribute table, find the plot that doesn't have any regeneration.
Kate, you're frozen. Just wait a second.
Oh, okay. So I right clicked on the shapefile name, went to the attribute table. And now that the attribute table is open, if you just click on the name of the field, it'll sort it. Do you see that it's sorting it low to high? So I can see that Sarah 27 is the plot with none. And my dog is snoring in the background. If you hear that, I don't know if you do, but Esker's snoring. Anyway, so I went in and it's similar with ArcGIS where you have to make changes, like to delete anything from your attribute table or to modify text. You often have to edit. You go into edit mode to do it. So to go into edit mode for QGIS, you click on this pencil. And so now I'm in edit mode. And then I can right click on this attribute or this row 27. And then there's this little trash can. So I deleted it. And then I'm going to save my edit mode. So I shouldn't see plot 27 anymore. Goes from 26 to 28. So delete it to plot 27. And I'm going to toggle back out of edit mode now. So everything is, kind of frozen. Delete that. And now my pie is gone.
Okay, and then how would you add like the dot with the special color?
Yep, so we can do that. So I'm just going to add that same shapefile back because it has all my points, all my plots, So this is the same metric 1, but it's got the symbols instead of the pies. So I'm going to open that one up. And instead of single symbol, where everything is plotted the same way, for symbology, I'm going to go to categorized. And then plot number. So I'm going to classify it, and that's going to give me all the plot numbers. But I only care about 20. Oh, oops. Haha. So I deleted that point out of my data set. So I can't retrieve it using this. Let me remove that. So it's probably helpful to have like a safe plots that you don't do anything to. That's your backup. Camilla, do you know, do we have like all of the forest plots as a shapefile? That's like separate from what we're doing in R?
Yep, we do. You can also just run your R code and output a new shapefile.
Yeah, right. You can output a generic shapefile.
Like you can have, I guess you can just, or before you do this, you can just copy your shapefile. That's probably fastest. But there is like an all forest plot shapefile as well.
I'm going to do it right now as we speak. Let's see how well I can code this just, on the fly. I'm using Forest NETN because this is an NETN park. But it's the same function calls. Got my XY coordinates in there, yeah.
But
what?
Kate, well, I mean, you can do this, but you could just use any of your shapefile that you've already made because it has all the points in it, right?
I know, but I'm just making a generic one.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe this is boring or not the best use of my time. Oh, that's where I get a little unsure of myself, the Proj 4 thing. Okay, so that was just to create kind of a special data, a special forest plot script shapefile. So that one is one that's always going to have all the plots in it, and I'm never really going to modify it as far as like deleting or keeping points. So to make the symbol that only plots for the park or the plot that has 0 regen, go into categorized, go based on plot number, classify, gonna delete all but 27. And then there. So there's plot 27. Whoops. Okay. Yeah, anything else? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Come back to video.
I do actually have another question about the histogram. I don't know. Let me just pull up the screen so I can. Should I share my screen or?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, if you think that'll help.
It might. Let's see. It doesn't give me the option to share. Hold on. Technical difficulties. Oh, there it is. So I don't know if this will show up in another window. Do you see the layer properties window that I just opened?
Yeah,
Great.
we can see it.
So the bar length, is that what you played with to make the bars look, sorry about the colors, but to make the bars look visible? Because I see that making it bigger kind of extends the bars, which is great, but I wasn't sure if that was just scaling it to the value or if that's playing with something else.
It is scaling it to the value, so the highest value is going to be 12.6 tall, and then everything else is relative to that.
Okay, great.
Did that answer?
Yeah, I think that was all I was wondering because I wasn't sure if you did it another way. Cool, great, awesome.
Kind of speaking of bars, we put like a white outline around each bar too, so it's easier to see. So I'm gonna share my screen again to show you what that looks like, just so you know what I'm talking about. Not this one, but the histogram. It'll take me a second to get to that. Here we go. So you see like around each bar is a white halo.
Yep.
This one's a little, I don't know, now that I'm looking at it, I think I don't like how big those white halos are and how squishy they are together, but I think it is helpful to make a little bit of a white kind of halo around each one so that it just, it's better contrast between the different bars. So I think I'm opening up another version of this to show, I think, a better version of what I made in QGIS. Oh yeah, this is what I made in QGIS a couple months ago to see if it's actually possible. And so I think I just made white as an outline instead of having black in it. And I think that that looks a little nicer. And so that's something that you'll play around with in the properties somewhere. I think the diagrams, and I think it's just like in here. Wait, can you? I need to figure it out. Sorry, but it is possible to make like a color go around it. And I'll try to figure it out. And there's, I think tonight's reading or this afternoon's reading is more on the diagrams and symbology. So you will probably get to the answer before I do.
I just found it.
Oh, sweet.
So it's in the diagram under rendering and format. You can choose a line color and the line width.
There we go. Thank you. I was like totally missing that. So if we make it 255, yeah, I think all F's is white. And then, yeah, there you go. Line width. Yeah, now the line width is white instead of black. I think for the pies, it makes sense to still be black. So I'm going to change that to black. But for the bars, I think the white is kind of a nicer approach. And so these are things that Camilla and I have kind of come up with and consistently used. But if you have strong feelings about how something could be better and you want to change it, like please propose it and we're open to it. I mean, we're not wizards. We don't know like the best of everything, how to make everything look perfect, and especially with design and color. So if you have other opinions or ideas, like please talk about them and bring them up to the group, and then we can decide the direction we want to go. Okay, anything else, or do you want to, I'll stop sharing screen and come back to video.
All good for me.
Okay, and these are great questions, and I appreciate the patience and that like you guys are often finding the answers before I do when there's a question. That's great. That's a good sign. And hopefully this continues this way. And this is another reason why I think it'll help to kind of have pairs where you can each be like, oh, like one person be like, hey, I just found this. Did you know that you could do this? And maybe part of our coming back to when we have our group calls, part of that can be like, has anybody found anything cool? Or like, has anybody been able to find something, do something faster than what I showed you, so that we all can kind of advance together. So, yeah. Okay, so I think we covered everything that I was hoping to today. And then tomorrow, we're actually a little ahead of where I thought we would be, but tomorrow we'll kind of advance our map a little farther, and maybe we'll actually be able to complete. Well, I don't know if we'll complete because we still want to be able to approve the templates, but like work on your map now and do the extra readings and try to get to the metric 1 and metric 4 examples with your park, and we'll like show, like be ready to show what your map looks like, so we can talk about like the color scheme and how you grouped your communities. And then if there's anything related to R that you want us to cover tomorrow, we can do that too, because I kind of feel like we covered everything today that I thought we would cover today and tomorrow in QGIS, which is great because I was hoping that the QGIS part would be a faster learning curve and that you all would like be able to kind of like start running with it as soon as you opened it. And it seems like that's the case, and that's great. So tomorrow is kind of a open day for anything that you guys want to cover, but I also think we should show what we have and kind of talk through the habitats. So, okay. And the last thing is just this afternoon, are you all okay to meet like, 15-minute time slots? Okay. So Camilla and I have a call from 12 to 1. Boo. But after that we can meet. Sorry, it's like it's people from Colorado that it's like 10 o'clock their time, so they scheduled it as like a good meeting time for them, but it just sucks that it's always during lunch and I always forget to eat lunch before, so I'm like hungry and it's just not the way I want to have a meeting.
It's not a good meeting to have hungry. Let me just say that.
Yes, it's about our database. But so if we could start from like, just in case the database meeting runs long, like from 2:15 to 2:30, 2:30 to 2:45, 2:40, if we can do that. Does anybody have like specific time slots they want to sign up for? And I can put it in our group Google Calendar. Okay.
That's like the perfect lunch sleepy time.
After 2?
Yeah. I'm fine with any time slot.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm going to say
alphabetically.
So who's first alphabetically? Is that based on first name or last name? Well, let's do first name or last name, because Katie, you raised your hand. Yeah, B comes first. So Katie is going to go first. Oh, what?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, Jamie, I'm sorry. God. Okay. Sorry.
I'm so
Jamie.
sorry. I'm not used to people having last names before me.
Okay. Yeah, it's not important, but okay. So Jamie, you can be 2:15 to 2:30. So I'll add you there. And then Katie is next. So you'll be 2:30 to 2:45. And if we end up needing more time for each person, just be flexible if we have to push you back. I don't know how it's gonna go. 2:30, 2:45. Okay, and then Diana's next, right? Yeah. Okay. So Diana will be 3:45. No, 2:45. Sorry. And then Kala 3 to 3:15.
Would that be just through the same link that we used for today?
Yeah, I think we can do it that way. Okay. So is everyone good? So I will go through those again. So Jamie's going to be 2:15. Katie's going to be 2:30. Diana 2:45. And Kala 3. We good? Okay. Okay, great. Well, yeah, that's everything I wanted to cover. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about or do before we break?
Oh, I have cat content. He's sleeping on my bed. He never sleeps there, so I think he wanted to be shown off.
It's nice. Hi, Sponge. Cool.
I like your dog Lump, Kate.
Oh, yeah. That's Esker. She's not snoring anymore.
All I see is the back half. I don't know if you guys see more of the dog, but I only see like back legs. It's very cute.
Yes. She has very furry paws. She's got like the best dog paws in the world. They're just like, she's got like hair coming out between her toes and like coming out this, like, I really like her paws. Yeah. Okay. So anything else before we break? Nope. All right. So go do good things. So get your map ready for tomorrow as if like you want to pitch it as like, your layout that we approve. And if you have problems, of course. What are you gonna say, Camille?
If you don't get there, it's okay too.
Yeah. Like, yeah, right. Like that's what you're gonna aspire to try to, get as far as you can, and then we'll each show what we did and talk about it, and then figure out what we need to cover tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Great. All right, so I will see you all a little bit this afternoon and tomorrow morning. Great. All right, have a good day.